Good morning. Barry Bryson here. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. We're in chapter 4. We're going to finish chapter 4 today, and we're going to get some real light today. We've had a bit of light before, and we've been able to make out shapes that are beautiful, that the circle, the loop that God has placed us in under the sun is not just a big zero. It's actually a beautiful, perfectly formed shape that God has made for us, and that God, and inside which God gives us many gifts. But we started to have these moments of real self-awareness about competition, about trying to be the best, about being the one to figure things out as opposed to other people, and about achieving things when you have no one to share them with, and how pointless that is. And we're going to have some real wisdom, some real concrete conclusions. He's going to say some things that are just absolutely and eternally true, beginning in verse 9. So let's read from verse 9 to the end of the chapter, verse 16 of Ecclesiastes chapter 4. 2 are better than 1, because they have a good reward for their toil. If they fall, one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him who is alone when he falls, and has not another to lift him up. Again, if 2 lie together, they keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone? And though a man might prevail against one who is alone, 2 withstand him. A 3-fold cord is not quickly broken. Better was a poor and wise youth than an old and foolish king who no longer knew how to take advice. For he went from prison to the throne, though in his own kingdom he had been poor. I saw all the living who move about under the sun, along with that youth who was to stand in the king's place. There was no end of all the people, all of whom he led. Yet those who come later will not rejoice in him. Surely this is a vanity and a striving after the wind. Those last few verses are still difficult for me to pin down, but I think the beginning of them are clear. What should we be doing under the sun? Well, enjoying God's gifts and understanding that they are God's gifts. But then there's this: form relationships. The human race as a species is not pointless. 2 are better than 1. Form relationships, establish meaningful relationships with others. And when we do that, God is in the mix. The 3-fold cord. Who is the 3rd cord if not God? Some see the relationship itself as being a cord, but God makes that relationship possible. So there's no way of getting around that the 3rd cord is God himself, or the gift that God provides. And so now we have something concrete, something that we can put down, something that we can talk about at the press conference when we make our conclusions. Not only are we going to be able to describe the closed loop of life under the sun as something that is beautiful, something designed by God, something that God made for us if we don't mess it up. But now we know something concrete to be doing, not just enjoying the gifts of God and pursuing, the treadmill itself, but building relationships. And wisdom itself, understanding is better. It's better to be a poor, wise youth than an old and foolish king who doesn't know how to take advice. I think he has a specific king in mind, and it may even be himself. I don't know. And I don't know precisely what he's trying to say about humanity in those following verses, but I do think he's talking about the herd mentality of people, and how people... He's not rejecting humanity as a species, but he is saying this: there's a difference between the personal, between what you and I can have together, and how people respond as a herd, and that's almost never good. And if I think he's trying to get at the thing Tommy Lee Jones says to Will Smith in Men in Black. There's that great moment in Men in Black where they're sitting on the bench, there by the river in the city, and Will Smith has been made to know, that there are aliens among us and all that's going on, And he says, why don't you tell people? People are smart. And Tommy Lee Jones says, a person is smart. But people, as a herd, no, not at all. That when people act with a herd mentality, nothing good ever comes of it, and you know it. And I think Solomon is saying that too. I don't think that Solomon is saying that humanity as a whole can be trusted to act as a herd. But I know that he is saying that we individually, can live responsible lives, productive lives, especially as we live them in relationship with each other. Okay, he's going to start telling us how to live our lives, telling us what to do in chapter 5. We'll pick up there next time. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word.